We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the City Services Committee meeting to discuss assignment number 1725, request for legislation to establish a curbside recycling program for the City of Chillicothe. I think it's one of the more exciting assignments that we've had come across our desk in the last couple of years. It's something that many of us have heard a lot about. A lot of residents asking for such a program, and it's nice that we have Beth Neal, who has joined us as co-chair on this committee. This is something that's very important to her, something that she's campaigned on for many years now.
Yes.
And so it's nice to have her on board so that she can help steer us through all the different research and decisions we have to make. So I'm going to go ahead, since this is something that she's been in favor of for so long, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her and let her get things started.
Thank you, David. First of all, I want to thank so many people that have sent emails and letters of support that couldn't be here tonight. I just want to say that there is a big outpouring of community support for this initiative. People talk about trying to recycle and our bins are full, and just that they're looking forward to the convenience of having recycling come to their curbside. The plans right now are that it would come once every other week. You would get a 96-gallon container for all your recyclables, and it is single stream. Mayor Feeney and Jeff Carmen have worked on the details of this for a long time with the Waste Management Group and with Rumpke. They have a lot of details, so I'll just turn the meeting over to Mayor Feeney with his PowerPoint presentation.
Thanks, both of you. So, as Councilwoman Neal mentioned, we did spend, the best part, nice to stand is, we spent the better part of last year working on a proposal. Tom Davis over there next to Jeff Carmen is the director of the Ross, Pickaway, Fayette, Highland Solid Waste District, and he has been a huge help. So I've put together PowerPoint. This is my first PowerPoint, so I'm really hopeful that it goes well. And to just sort of describe that process, the proposal that we have, and hopefully answer some of the questions that you might already be thinking of. And then we can field questions at the end, or along the way, if you have questions, feel free to bring them up, but hopefully we've anticipated as many of them as we could throughout the presentation. But like Councilwoman Neal said, this has probably been the single issue that I've received the most questions, requests, comments on, and you know, there's a million different reasons for why. The traditional one is the environmental stuff, you know, landfill and climate change and all that stuff, but realistically, it has many impacts. Right now, the City of Chillicothe, we are if you live in the city, your trash provider. We have a contract with Rumpke, who has what's called a transfer station on Eastern Avenue. So when we pick up your trash, the city employees pick up your trash, we take it to the transfer station, and we pay a fee to dump that. We usually call that a tipping fee. And so by recycling, we would reduce the amount of things that we take to the transfer station and therefore reduce that tipping fee. And then there's the side effects of just the fact that it's a landfill that's right by the city. You're going to increase the life of that landfill. It doesn't fill up as fast. Beth mentioned those containers that we all see. Last night I was on Bridge Street, and the good news is they are used a lot, right? People do like to recycle. But if you drive by Kmart, if it happens to be a couple days since they've been picked up, oftentimes stuff piles up. And it also gives people an opportunity, sometimes unfortunately, to drop some things off that aren't supposed to go there. So a cleaner community. Convenience for citizens. I know for me personally, the recycling piling up in the house kind of gets annoying, and then putting it in the car and the smelly, the sticky stuff. And then, you know, if nothing else, people want it. People have been asking and asking and asking. So I view my role and our role as the administration is to listen to those requests and put together a proposal for council to consider, and along the way we can tweak and modify, but this is what we put together. So as I mentioned, there's some barriers to recycling now. It's difficult or inconvenient. Oftentimes the drop-off containers are full. They can become full quickly. One thing that, until we got into this process, I didn't think about a lot was that we have a lot of citizens that don't have transportation, so they're somewhat barred from recycling right now. They can't recycle if they want to. If they do, it's difficult. They have to ride a bicycle or ways that are difficult. And there are limited locations. I believe within the city of Chicago we have 7 locations, drop-off locations. 9 drop-off locations, but they are limited. So here's the nitty-gritty. This is the proposal. We are proposing a city service, which is curbside recycling. Now, when I say a city service, that would be just like trash pickup is a city service, water is a city service, sewer is a city service. The proposal, as presented, is that all city residents who have trash pickup service would also be in the recycling program. As a part of that, we would issue recycling carts. And the size is important because under this proposal, we would pick up recycling every other week from your home. We wouldn't be coming by every week like trash, but the container would be big enough that we believe it can accommodate that every other week. One of the biggest things about this proposal is that it's single stream. That means no sorting. Time and time again, we looked at what has been successful in other parts of the country. We looked at the program here in Chillicothe when it came up before, and the most consistent way to get high participation rates is to make it easy for people to recycle. And you do that by doing single stream. The program itself, the service, is projected to require 2 employees on the truck. And then based on our projections, which I'll get to a little bit later, if a fee is necessary, at this point we anticipate it being something less than $2 per household per month. So right now you pay $15 per household per month for trash pickup, and we anticipate it would be less than $2 per month for that additional recycling fee. Now, like I said, we're not committing to any numbers right now because there's some things that are yet to come in terms of the proposal, but essentially that bill would just go up $2 if that's where we landed. There is a pretty significant capital investment. The number one thing is a truck and a compactor. We've reached out to Kenworth on a truck, but what we'll end up doing is going out to bid or request for a quote on a truck, and then usually the compactors that go on the back are made by a separate company and made to fit. And then the carts, the city would be buying all of those 96-gallon carts, which are not cheap, but it's important that we buy them so that they work with the truck, so that there's uniformity, and those would be the 2 main capital costs. You're looking at probably something in the range of 8,000 to 8,500 carts with that initial purchase, so it's a big chunk. The good news is the Ohio EPA wants us to recycle, so they have grants available for capital and startup costs related to curbside recycling and other programs. So we have already submitted the grant to the EPA based on this proposal for trucks and carts. Now that doesn't commit us. If we are awarded the grant, we don't have to spend it. If council and the community says, no, we do not like this plan, we're not obligated to accept that grant. But with Tom's help, we made sure that we met this year's deadline in the event that this proceeded in council and the community was on board. So some key points. Maybe the biggest point is participation. When I say participation, I mean we want as many people as possible to recycle. The more people that recycle, the better the program works. If you think about it like an investment by the city, the more people that do it, the more dividends we get. In other words, the more people that recycle, the more opportunity we have to save on trash and other things. And so the best way for us to ensure, there are multiple ways to ensure high rates of participation. One is making it easy. We give you the cart, you don't have to sort, and then the last thing is the fee gets added to the utility bill, just like your trash, just like your water, it's just on there. And everybody that's already getting their trash picked up Recycling is just automatically added in, and we go. And so that is the best way to make sure that we have high participation rates and save money in the long run. There are fixed and variable costs related to the recycling program, and to it's also why high participation rates are important. Fixed costs are going to be program administration. That means we're sending out the bills, we're collecting money, we're managing the people, and then the collection itself. Driving those truck routes, that's going to be a fixed cost. Now what's variable based on participation is, if you drive and you have a whole city route and you've got the people to do it, and they're only picking up, let's say 10% participating versus 50% participating, your tipping fees, the amount you're paying for that drop-off at the transfer station, can vary greatly. Now we would expect in an initial year of a recycling program, your participation rates may be lower, but we want to see them grow over time. And as it would grow, your tipping fees in recycling would increase, but in theory, your tipping fees for trash would go down. If I was better at PowerPoint, I would have done a graph that showed you that, but I'm not.
A little inverse.
That's right. Again, we actually want to pay more for recycling tipping fees, because that means we're paying less for other things. And then the other key point for participation and everybody liking the program is single stream versus dual stream. Now I will tell you that there are advantages to the residents sorting themselves. The major advantage to the residents sorting themselves is they don't have to go somewhere else, so it's cheaper. It is cheaper to have dual stream or sort yourself. If we give you a bin for glass and a bin for aluminum and a bin for newspapers, that is cheaper for us at the transfer station, because they don't have to use their big stations to sort everything out. However, it's less likely that we'll get high participation rates. And then you've got the different bins, you need different containers, you don't have the wheels. It's just a more uncomfortable situation to sort. And like it was pointed out to me, and we investigated some, we've tried sorting before. Okay, so then single stream, like I said, it's going to cost more at the transfer station. However, what we would expect and what you see across the country is that over time your participation rates steadily go up. So it's more convenient, there's less effort, and over time more savings. So there is an expected impact on refuse collection. This is just some quick facts about what we're currently doing. What we take on average over the past 5 years to Eastern Avenue, this is all of our pickup, it includes things like large item pickup or drop off when we've done them, is, the exact average was 7,676 tons per year. You had some high years in there and some low years. I think the low was around 7,400 and the high was around 7,900. Our current tipping fee, which is a contract with Rumpke, is the amount you see there, $36. That is usually negotiated in 3-year terms. You can put it out to bid. Now, the cost for those companies is highly dependent on the cost of gasoline, because the landfill is not on Eastern Avenue. That's a transfer station. We drop off stuff at the transfer station, they take it somewhere else. So if you've got a transfer station nearby, or if the landfill they take it to is nearby, then the cost for trash is less. If recycling has to go far away, that will increase the cost for us to recycle if we don't have a local transfer station. So there's going to be some impacts on refuse depending on the contract that goes out. Haulers is really interesting. We could not get Rumpke to give us just a rough estimate of a recycling per ton quote. I don't know how many times we asked them. I tried to trick them into telling me, and they would never tell me, because they want, there's too many factors, I suppose. But we all anticipate that it will be less than the cost for the tipping fees for trash. We just don't know what that number is. And then the other consequence, which seems likely, I couldn't tell you amount of time, but is if we do get really high rates of participation in recycling, that would reduce the need for trash routes and or trucks and or drivers. Now the shift would be over to recycling as that increase went up, but you would expect, with the recycling trucks, we're talking about an arm that would pick up the bin. Trash itself is going to be harder on the body, so you're going to have other costs that go down, workers' compensation, some costs that when we started this project I didn't really even think of. Okay, so as I mentioned before, Tom Davis over here deserves, he wouldn't want one, but he deserves a round of applause. He's been a huge help to us. And he's taught us a lot about the recycling, the program, what works, what doesn't from his experience. And really, he could say it better than I can, but I think your organization exists in part to encourage recycling in those 4 counties. And the more we recycle, the better you look, right, Tom? So we all want to make Tom look good. So Tom himself, I don't like to make guarantees, so I didn't put it in there. What I've said is we are requesting $50,000 from the Solid Waste District to support this program. We're requesting it on an ongoing basis. Tom can tell you later if he's guaranteeing that or not, but that's what we're requesting. Tom has also, in fact, he was the one really that wrote the grant to the Ohio EPA, put us in contact with the Ohio EPA, has helped us work with them. We are requesting from them this year $250,000, and we will request another $250,000 next year to cover as much of that startup capital cost as possible. So the truck and the bins, if we can get somebody else to bear the cost of that capital startup, this program becomes a lot more affordable. And then the $50,000, of course, that I'm not guaranteeing, but Tom might, would be a huge impact and a huge help to us in pulling this project off. Okay, so here's some of the next steps, and this is the last slide. We can get into some of these questions if you have any afterwards. We didn't go all the way. There's some things that we don't know yet, but we wanted to get some buy-in from council first before we started doing some actual bid solicitation, that kind of thing. Hauling and tipping fees are really the big unknown right now. They're the big uncertainty. Rumpke and Waste Management are in both the refuse and the recycling businesses. And so they would like to and will bid on the tipping fees together. And they're able to give you different prices if they get both of those services. We've put this out to bid as refuse only because there are entities, Athens Hocking Recycling Center, which is 55 miles away, they only do recycling. So we're putting it out to bid as a combo. Tell us what it would cost if we give you both recycling and trash. Tell us what it would cost, just like we always do for trash bids and recycling only. So there's some scenario that Athens Hocking comes back and says, well, we'll do it for $10 a ton, and nobody else can compete. And then one entity would do our trash and one entity would do our recycling. We're also going to need quotes on the trucks and the compactors, and quotes on the carts to get a true idea of what that startup cost and what the ongoing cost would be. We've got a pretty good idea. We've already got employees that would either be in the correct job description or minimal modifications, but we've got a good grasp on the cost of employees. Once, at least how I'm thinking about it now is, once we have all of those costs, if council says, yeah, let's get those costs, then it's a more complete package for council to vet. But in the meantime, there can be conversations and questions asked. So that was a pretty quick run through of the scope of the program. I'm happy to go back through the slides to help trigger your memory for questions. I think that probably the committee goes first, and then you guys can take it back from here. With Jeff and Tom here, they can probably answer questions with a little more clarity than I can. But I appreciate pulling this meeting together and everybody here for coming.
I think I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done putting together what we have so far. We know that it's not fully complete, but it's a nice picture to look at as we start making considerations. And I did do some research, and as you guys did, and of course if you have the single stream recycling, your participation rates are generally much higher, and I think that's a benefit to any recycling program. So I know I would be much happier going forward with single stream as opposed to trying to have
3 bins.
have it. So, yeah, I would certainly be happier with that. Any comments or questions? Yeah.
This also is very good presentation. My question is, so it's bi-weekly, and it would, I guess, coincide with your trash pickup day?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
That's something we'll work through.
Sure.
But I don't think it's necessarily the case.
Okay, that's, I mean, just as long as we have a proper way of letting people know, because, you know, we are creatures of habit, so.
And you know, we would work, we haven't even worked through details such as, does the pickup happen in the same place? Like, my trash gets picked up in the alley. I can't say with certainty right now. I think it would be prudent for us to look at that whole thing. Now, I don't know, you know, I'm not suggesting that part of the proposal is that my recycling gets picked up in front of the house, but I think that's something that we should look at, because it can impact the type of truck you buy, wear and tear on the vehicle.
I would comment on that, my hometown I'm originally from, that is where that did happen on the same day, did happen at the same time. And it was a different sized vehicle, so you would put your recyclables in the front, and then most of the trash was picked up in the alley, you know, because we had a pretty good alley system.
Right.
But the recycling, because it was a smaller vehicle, you know, it was placed in the front, in the street. So just interesting things, details that I'm sure will get fleshed out as
Yeah.
we progress.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Things that I never thought about with roads and streets and alleys is you think about our street maintenance and how it's lacked for a long time. Our alley maintenance has been even worse, really.
Yes.
We send our biggest equipment down a lot of alleys. So what does that do to the alleys, and what does that do to those trucks? It's all, you know, when you think about city design, we at least owe it to ourselves right now to think about this when we do it. Now, it might be the only way. I mean, everybody parks on my street, so picking up recycling might be difficult if you do it that way. But I think fully vetting all of the options makes a lot of sense.
And I know that you touched base on it a little bit, but taking your recycling to the drop-off points now. I mean, I know that's something that my wife and I do, but sometimes you go to drop it off and you find out the containers have moved. I started getting phone calls, where did the recycling go? And the reason it's moved is, unfortunately, some people do not treat that as recycling. They treat that as the dump. They just throw whatever they want in and around that area, which then discourages those who might go to the drop-off points from going, because they don't want to fight that, and they don't want to put up with that.
Right.
If we had curbside recycling, would the bins still exist?
Would you keep the bins?
I think that
Sorry. Right now, we currently spend about $75,000 a year to maintain the bins that are in and around Chillicothe. We would probably reduce the amount, but we would keep some out because lots of people from outside the city come inside, and that's where they recycle. So probably on the perimeter, we would keep quite a few. In the middle of the city, we might get rid of a few. So
I've already had people from the county contacting me
Say,
asking
"Don't
if
take
they're
out
still
my
gonna have a
bin."
place to
They still
dump
will,
their
I'm sure.
recycling.
I'm not sure they'd be quite as convenient as they are now, but we're required to provide those recycling bins to 90% of the population of the county. So that's why we have as many as we do. If we can provide curbside to the city, we don't have to keep that percentage that high. But we will still need to provide some in the city for those people that are coming into the city to do business and recycle.
Thank you.
I think it's also one of the reasons that Tom's able to shift some money, because he can save money on the bins that he'd have to provide. We just be the beneficiary of that.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, the city tried recycling once before. They were designated a Keep America Beautiful community. And they were able to bring in funds to help with education, because education was crucial. And it was key in being able to get the word out and get questions asked and answered. So being a KAB community designee helps considerably in recycling efforts, and it also opens us up to two things: grants that they provide, as well as corporate sponsorship, and being able to work with them. So I hope that that would be a consideration if you want to go after that as programming for in the future.
That's awesome.
Any other committee members or council members, questions or concerns? Comments?
That presentation covered a lot.
I mean, I think it would be beneficial to know what we're looking at as far as the tipping fees and,
I think so as well.
I think that would be beneficial. I would also be interested in finding out, what does the outlook for recycling, the cost of recycling look like? I know there's a lot of communities in and around the state that are seeing significant increases in the cost of their recycling contracts. And I think that's something that we need to consider as far as making sure that whatever program we do develop is a sustainable program, and we don't end up in the situation that we found ourselves in the past where we have a service and then suddenly it's gone.
Yeah. So we've considered some of that. So on the front end, the assessment that I've been making, I've operated under the assumption that if we go out to bid, the worst case scenario, at least in my mind, is that recycling is not any cheaper per ton than trash. And then making an evaluation at that point, do you still want to offer it as a service? I suspect we still have a lot of people say, yes, I want it as a service. Especially when you can get the cost of operations offset so dramatically. But that's one of the reasons that the fee is necessary. Now, the other thing is, you're right, if the cost of the tipping fee goes up dramatically, that impacts your operational costs. One of the reasons that the proposal is that we do it ourselves is because we know we can manage those costs, and we also anticipate that as people, maybe as we peel people off of trash, the way that they're going is recycling, and on days, those jobs are multitasked too. So that is an intentional way to manage that cost. From our research, and I think Tom can back this up some, and then Rumpke as well when we've talked to them, the commodities market is I don't know that it's at an all-time low, but it's very low. So 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when recycling was becoming more popular, it was a huge money saver, if not a money maker. People were making money off of aluminum and all that stuff, but Stacy and I used to take our cans down to the transfer station and get a couple bucks. Now it's not even worth saving the cans because those prices have just dropped and dropped and dropped. I don't know that they bottomed out completely, but like interest rates and everything else, it seems like the direction that they would head would be up, which would mean that those tipping fees would go down. But it also relates to the cost of fuel, gasoline, that kind of thing, where those bids come from. So I can tell you that as a part of this process, we've met with Rumpke, quite a few times, 4 or 5 times, and they are very interested in seeing recycling happen here. They do it, I think, Jackson and some surrounding communities, and there are certain ways that I think that they're willing to help and encourage us to do it. But I think the RFP or the RFQ that we have drafted is for a 3-year term, which is what our tipping fee contracts have been. So that's what you get is 3 years of guarantees. Another thing that as we get into the nitty-gritty that I would suggest we think about doing is whatever fee we put on, consider putting a portion of that fee to be dedicated to capital, so that in 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is, that there's a fund set aside specifically for the purchase of new trucks and or bins, because we know that we'll need replacement bins, we know that we'll need new trucks, and we've experienced over time that difficulty in biting the bullet of buying the new truck, putting that kind of thing off. So setting aside money, I think that for borrowings, when we borrow money from the state or use state terms, you're looking at 7 years useful life for a garbage truck or recycling truck. We get more out of that, but that's what they depreciate out usually. So to fully fund a new recycling truck in 7 years with those fees might make a lot of sense.
And yet some communities even have, where if you want, something that we might consider, some communities, if you are a major recycler and you would like to have an extra bin, you can call and purchase one.
Sure.
So that might be something to look at as well.
Yeah, because that's just better for us, you know,
Right.
more power to you for recycling more. Now this proposal is for residential. It doesn't consider, we haven't investigated what commercial recycling looks like. And I don't know how big a task that is to take on, but we started with residential.
I'm sorry, Dr. Kern.
Yes, I was just going to say that, and looking at this proposal, which is great, and I'm very much in favor of recycling, I also would suggest that we look into a new company or organization that's called Simply Recycling, and they cycle for free, and there are certain things that they
What is it, Jean?
Simpler, SIMPLER, recycling, and you can look it up on your iPad. It's free. They handle all aspects of the program, the collection process and management of it. They set their trucks up to follow existing trash and recycling. They have it in Akron. The company is out of Solon, Ohio. It's the base company. Now, the municipalities can also be compensated on a per pound basis for the material collected by them. So it is a kind of money-making thing for them, but it's also kind of a win-win because there are some things that they could collect even with this recycling here, and some of the things that they actually collect are clothing and houseware types of things, microwave, pots and pans, small furniture, radio, toasters, clothes, and what have you. And they send in bags, green bags. You might have seen some people have those. And you put your items in there and they collect it. I just throw that out for members to look at that, because that could be, if we're not able to do this in this entire, format, that may be another option. And even with this, that could be an option to cut down of some of the things that Rockland would be picking up. But just check it out, Simply Recycling, and check it on the website right here.
Is that something that you guys have, are you familiar with? No? Thank you. Well,
It's in Solon, Ohio, SOLON, but Simply Recycling will come right up.
thank you.
I just wanted to, I'm hearing a lot of talk of adding another fee, and we're doing a water rate increase. I'm totally for recycling, but, the cost of everything, we're gonna have to be very careful, because we've already asked the citizens to step forward and raising, tax money for the streets and alley program, and police and fire. I'm for it, but, if you're talking about a truck with the arm, they can't get through the alleys. There's not enough clearance to swing one of those. I think that was found out when former Mayor Planton had it.
What we looked at there was in the alleys, they make a truck that has a rear loading with an arm on it, so it's not the side loading. So it'd be basically what we have now, but the arm's in the back. It's actually what we're spec'ing.
That should work for me. I'm just concerned about the financial portion of it.
I'd just like to thank you for all considering this and getting to this state, and I'd like to thank Luke and Jeff for putting a lot of time into this. And as Luke said, if you do this, it's going to make the solid waste district look good. Well, that's exactly right. If that happens, the amount of materials that we recycle in the 4 counties right now through the drop-off programs that you have around now would probably increase by about 35%. And you are not regulated by Ohio EPA, but I, as a solid waste district, am. And they're requiring us to provide 25% recycling rates to the 4 counties. So I have to every year tell them how much garbage is generated in the 4 counties and how much is recycled. So if those numbers increase by 35%, I'll be able to show a large increase and maybe funnel some of those dollars that are going into that drop-off program to curbside. And curbside is a much more convenient opportunity, a lot more materials are recycled. And I think it's kind of a perfect storm, if you will, right now in terms of where the city sits and where the dollars sit for this. The Ohio EPA is very interested in seeing that happen here. So they're willing to invest dollars in a grant program. I'm willing to invest dollars from the solid waste into the program, which can maybe see some savings. So if the capital costs for this program are in the $600,000 or $700,000 range, and you're able to access maybe $650,000 worth of grants and assistance from the district, it's kind of tough to turn down, in my opinion. So I understand the whole thing about raising fees and what the residents want, but I think the citizens of Chillicothe deserve to have the type of services that many people in the state of Ohio have at their curbside. So thank you all for considering that, and if there's any other questions, you feel free to contact me at the Solid Waste District.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think the fee is concerning to everybody, making sure that we're not just arbitrarily raising fees, but I think residents want to see, I'm going to pay for something, I want to make sure I'm getting a quality service.
Amen.
I've talked to a lot of people since this proposal came through, and I think people were actually shocked in the article to see what the fee rate was being proposed at. I think people were expecting it to be significantly higher, and some people said they would be okay with as much as $5 a month if that's what it took to get them. So to see it come down, and people were pretty happy to see that. So I think as long as you're providing a quality program and they can see some benefit from it, I think we can overcome that.
National averages and state trends, the 96-gallon cart that you're proposing is right at the top. That is what a lot of communities started, and possibly Chillicothe did back when they started with the 14-gallon bin. It's just not quite enough to hold the materials you need, and so they're flowing over, they're blowing around. The 96-gallon cart is the future for curbside recycling.
What is it? I'm having trouble remembering. What does that cart cost you to buy?
About $47. We got some estimates. If you're going to buy 8,500 of them, it's going to cost you about $47 a cart.
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of weigh in on the fee. I know nobody cares for fees, wants more fees. I've been in discussions in the past where we've talked privatizing our trash service, and discussions on how much private services would cost and the way they come in. And I did a lot of research on it back at the time, how they come into cities and teaser fees, and then all of a sudden it jumps up. And I can tell you 4 or 5 years ago or so when I was in those discussions, most private fees are in the 18 to 25, almost $30 per month fee. So we're even cheap at 15. I'm not trying to justify it, but and yes, the residents have been hit with increase in income taxes and everything. But I hope that the residents have seen the benefits of everything that they've put forward. And I think with all the things that we've done with our fire and our safety and police and the roads and things, I think this, if they see value for what they've spent, I don't think that's $2 a month as we got it. I mean, really, for what we're getting, we're still way below what most garbage rates would be if they were living anywhere else. So I know it might be tough to push, but it's not really a sales job. But I'm just weighing in. I think it's a small amount.
I think that's why I would like to see kind of what are we looking at as far as projected cost increases, or is are things normalizing? Because there has been some communities that have signed contracts for recycling, and then all of a sudden when they go to renegotiate, there are significant increases. So I'm wanting to make sure, and again, being able to control collection part of it is a big help.
But I can tell you, I don't know how many different ways I asked for them to say, right now, what would you charge me per ton for recycling? There'd be two guys in a room and they look at each other and go, oh, they won't have. So to project anything beyond what they bid on, they're just not gonna do it. And so, to the extent we can get somebody to project the commodities markets, you know, that's really the question that you're asking is what is going to happen? What is the value of the commodities that are recycled? And so, we can project out historical employee costs. We can give you historical tipping fees on the trash side. We can try to do public records requests for other cities that have, but it's all going to be historic. We just have found it surprisingly impossible to get anybody to say, even like, I'm telling you this off the record, it's going to be this. It won't do.
And I think for me, that adds to the concern.
Oh, sure.
What are they not wanting to tell you?
Yeah, I mean, the upside is you can always go back out to bid, right? We do it with trash right now, you do a 3-year contract, go back out to bid, and so in terms of the teaser rate aspect of it, on the tipping fees themselves, when you're just taking the stuff to them and dumping it, that has a little bit less, Waste Management's transfer stations on Sini Road. So the transfer stations in town, now they're gonna have more cost because their landfill is further away. It's likely to be more expensive, but their transfer station's still in town. So the two companies in town, the two waste haulers, there's always gonna be competition between the two. So we can look at some of that historical data for you. Maybe the tipping fees on the trash gives us some sense of what's happened historically with that on the trash side. But for whatever reason, they're just so reluctant to give more information.
I just wanted to clarify one question that a couple people have asked me, and I think the word mandatory has come up at some point. And mandatory originally referred to the fact that if you have a trash bill, if you get city service for trash collection, that you will get whatever the agreed upon fee is for the recycling. It does not mean that if you don't participate, or if we find recyclables in your trash, that you're going to be fined.
That's probably a poor choice of words on my part. What it means is that everybody's going to chip in.
People
You
were
can't have an
concerned there was
opt-in
going to be the
program
recycling police, so that is not
Right.
true.
Yeah. If you had opt-in, you'd have 2,000 homes opt-in, then the price per home is going to be $8, and the cost is not spread out as much. So, yes, mandatory means that it's going to be on your bill. It does not mean we'll be inspecting your trash.
If there's no other comments or questions from council members, then we can take a few from the audience if anybody has any comments or questions.
I had one question. When you were talking about getting bids, the wording was a little confusing. Are you talking about possibly privatizing our entire trash program if you go with this bid, or?
No. So the request for quotes would be for the cost of the tipping fee. Give me a price on tipping fees for trash alone. Just the tipping portion of it. So what we have now, give me that price. Give me the price for just tipping recyclables, and then give me the price for tipping both of them combined. So all the work that we have done in this proposal keeps the labor in-house.
Okay,
and the
so
truck
that
in-house.
just refers to tipping fees.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Anybody? Yes.
I think this is great. I really appreciate all the hard work you've been doing already for this program. I would just charge to try to keep making it better. So look into electronic waste recycling, household, fluids, chemicals, recycling. My wife and I lived in California for a couple of years, and they had all those opportunities for us. And I think you see people with their old TVs stacking up, and it'd be a great opportunity to have a place to bring those to, or have someone pick it up.
So one of the things that we've learned in this process is, and the thing that I didn't bring up in the key points section and the participation is the marketing and the advertising of it is really essential. And so to your point there, we actually have the Waste District does an electronic drop-off thing, but I didn't know, I lived here for a long time before I knew about it. So I think the whole scope of all what we need to advertise that better. I think that's a great point.
Yes.
I too want to thank you for all the work you've done. I think it's important that we do this in Chillicothe, not just for, for us and for people coming into the community, because they want it. They've had it in where they've lived before, and they come here and they say, what, you guys don't recycle? And it's time, it's really the future.
In a sense, it's an economic development tool,
Yes.
right? You recruit somebody to work here, and like you said, that's the exact thing that everybody says. What?
It's back.
Yeah. I didn't say that.
But we have had it here years and years ago. In fact, Mayor planted here during the time, and I think she's one of the ones that's helped to promote that and start that. So we have been very forward-looking in terms of that. But, and I guess when we get the history, I want to know the history in terms of why did we stop doing it? And I'm sure that there was a reason that we, stopped it. It just all at once, it stopped. But whether or not it was financial, or whether or not that people were not actually sorting. A lot of people do not, we are progressive, I love it. But there are a lot of people who still do not, and so, I guess the city might have looked at the fact, is it worth it? Based on how many people actually participate. So I think we have to look at all those things historically. And again, this is why I mentioned this, even if we do this, I would like for the council to look at this option that I just mentioned to pair with this, because what would happen, that too will cut down on a lot of things that we would have going, because this is actually free. And I did check with the cities who are doing this, and it is free. So,
It's more things like clothing, furniture, books. It's small appliances, that's what she's talking about. They come in with those and give you those green bags, so it's just a different kind of recycling.
Mrs. Plain, how long ago was our original attempt at recycling? Do you remember?
I went back to when Mayor Freeman.
Literally in the 80s,
Was it in the
it was already going on, and, I joined council in '90, and we certainly were recycling. We had Keep Chillicothe Beautiful and the recycling program, so there were multiple facets. One of the things that's not been mentioned is actually an in-school, working with young students to, again, promote environmentalism. That was a major part of this, and I think the Solid Waste District does some of that. So that was a big piece of it, and the
That's what I
program.
did, and my sister did.
Yes, you
Under
do.
I did it under Mayor Freeman, and my sister did it under Mayor Sullivan.
Yes,
Prior to-
and for me too, when
Exactly.
then she moved on to a different job, but
Exactly.
there were ups and downs with how it worked. I looked in some of my scrapbooks and didn't see a whole lot, but there was, recycling was gonna be moving to being picked up with the trash, because that's how the transfer station was accepting it. That you actually, the garbage truck picked up everything, and then the transfer station, I guess, was dividing it. And that was in '02, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening now. The program stopped under Mayor Sulzer in '04 or '05, and I would suspect it was financial.
If you look historically in the late 90s, early 2000s, recycling nationwide took a major hit financially. And there were a number of reasons for that, economic and commodities, and so a lot of cities lost recycling at that time, but have since recovered it.
That's one of the reasons the approach that I've taken is, it's a service that you gotta pay for. It's an add-on. You can't think about it in terms of, oh, we're gonna save so much money, or we're gonna make money on recycling. If we want it, we're gonna have to pay for it. It might, and the more people who are paying in, the more affordable it is for all of us. But if we don't think about it in terms of, probably like we used to, oh, we'll save money by recycling.
And that's how it was promoted back then. Like, oh, your municipality can make a bunch of money off of this, and it didn't materialize.
Which is another reason you put the fee on is, in the first couple of years with the capital startup costs being covered at least in part, and some operations help from solid waste district, the necessity of the fee in year 1, 2, or 3 may be a little bit less. But we don't want to fall off the cliff and say, oh no, now we need a fee, and then hold the program hostage. We want to build a little fund with the capital cost over time and that sort of thing. So
Well,
it's possible that we can create our own teaser rate, but we don't want to do that.
I think that that approach brings everyone in with their eyes open. I think that if you look in retrospect with fees and things like that, there had to have been lessons learned, you know, from failed attempts, not only here, but in other places. So whatever approach we do take, we take it with our eyes open. And if we do take it measured with our eyes open, and we're not looking for just a quality service, but a sustainable one, efforts like, you know, having a reserve fund for it and things like that, that's walking in with your eyes open and expecting things to change, you know, as opposed to, that's being proactive, as opposed to being, hey, 3 years down the line, things have changed, will we be in a position to move with that change? So those are the things that I would tend to agree with and be in support of.
I do think it's important to realize that it's something that we have to be ready, willing, and able to financially support. I mean, it is a service. But again, if you look at, I mean, there's so much research out there that single stream recycling really is the way to go. And cities that have already had recycling that you had to sort, and then they moved to single stream, could see participation rates increase by as much as 25%. And that's not at all insignificant. So I think that's real important to think about. Any other questions or anything else from council or city officials?
So guidance, I'm assuming you want us to go out for these quotes?
I
Not want
would,
us to
Beth.
do it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
Dave. Yeah, and Seal.
All right.
Yeah,
So-
I
so
would.
we'll go out for quote, they'll, the request will probably go up on the website and follow all the fitting requirements. We'll try to answer any of the questions that came up tonight and get back to you as soon as we have quotes in hand.